Hello everybody and welcome back to the Bourbon Bar. I'm Holden and today we're doing a kind of fun video because I am interested to see whether Booker's is better than Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Now in today's video I'm pairing up two Booker's versus two ECBPs, and the winner of this is going to go on to be probably one of my favorite barrel proof products that comes out. So that being said, I'm going to make this a three-part video. Video 1 is going to be Booker's versus ECBP. Video 2 will be Larceny versus ECBP. And video 3 will be Booker's versus Larceny Barrel Proof. Now, these are kind of three big hitters in the cask strength category that have a couple releases every single year. And each release is different, so this results may vary, but I personally find the Booker's to be very, very nice. And a lot of other people find it to be not as good as Elijah Craig, but I'm going to let you guys know what my personal opinion is back to back next to each other. This is 100% blind. So in these four glasses here on my left, I have A, B, C, and D, and in those glasses are Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C 921, Batch B 522, and I also have Booker's Batch 2021-04 and Batch 2022-02. Now, these are the only two Booker's batches I have, but out of the four batches of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof I have, these two are my top two favorites. So, I am putting the best against the best. I love my Booker's that I have, but I also love the Elijah Craigs. So, I'm super interested to see how this pans out, and I'm going to be going from A to D, take a small break, and then back from D to A, and I'm going to let you guys know which ones I like, and at the end we will reveal which one is which. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start with glass A and let you guys know how it is on the nose. So right away I'm noticing this one is extremely caramely. It's got darker notes to it, not a whole lot of fruit in it. I would definitely say there's a bit of cocoa in the back end, on the back of the nose here. But overall, really sweet and dark. It smells fantastic. A little bit of nuts, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of caramel. Who doesn't love those combinations? But yeah, it smells fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and get it on the palate and let you guys know how it is. Oof. That is good whiskey. I mean, these are all fantastic whiskeys, but it's my first one of the day, and honestly, it's very good. So, mouthfeel, rich, viscous. Lots of peanuts up front. It does have a lot of caramel in it as well, though, which is really, really nice. Definitely oaky, definitely has some age on it, but how much is hard to say. Now, the Elijah Craigs are 12-year-old whiskeys, and the Booker's are usually around that 6.5 to 7 year mark, so that will play a factor probably in this, although Booker's tends to have a lot of oak presence for its age. I am getting a little bit of like a green grape on the nose now after I went through on the palate once. It's very faint, but it is there a little bit, so just sort of like a light fruitiness. And then again on the palate, it has some very, very sweet notes right up front on the front of the palate, but as it goes down, it leaves like a nice, I want to say nutmeg, a bit of peanuts, and a nice oaky spice. So overall, glass A is very nice. Alright, moving to glass B, I'm going to let you guys know how the nose is. Oh, now I'm not entirely sure the overall presence of this whiskey, but it feels different than glass A. The profile feels different. I think this one has a little bit drier nuttiness, almost like a salted peanut dust instead of like a whole peanut. Definitely has some drier notes to it. Lots of like dry oak tannin, I think, is what I'm smelling here. A little bit less sweet, a little bit darker. Very, very, very rich dark chocolate, cocoa powder. Not a whole lot of overwhelming sweetness in the nose of this one. Honestly, it smells like a chocolate bar. If I was being honest, it smells like a chocolate bar with a little bit of like peanut dust on it, a little bit of salt on it, but overall, overwhelming chocolate. Oh, okay, interesting. So, the mouthfeel of this one, it's thinner. Very less sharp on the palate. which I wouldn't guess by the nose. The nose smelled like it was going to be a little bit more drying than it was, but overwhelmingly pretty silky smooth on the palate. Almost, I don't want to say watery, but it was borderlining that wateriness. And it did have a lot of flavor. It was a lot of that like caramel, oak, dark chocolate, very just overwhelming chocolate in this glass. I think there wasn't a whole lot of fruit presence, but it didn't quite seem as hot either. It kind of had less of a Kentucky hug and more of a Kentucky handshake, if you will. So overall, a little bit thinner. But now we move on to Glass C. Glass C on the nose. Oh, wow. This one smells like all sorts of a candy bar. I mean, the caramel is like overwhelming. It's like super caramely, along with the peanuts. Chocolate less present in this one, but it is really sweet. I want to say there's a vanilla in there, like a vanilla caramel, almost like a nougat. The nougat of like a candy bar, Milky Way. It's a nougat with caramel in it. Perfect example of this glass. I want to say there's also a bit of a light cherry note in this as well. Not overwhelming, kind of on the back end of this, but a little bit of cherries in there. So very candy bar-ish. Nougat, it's like a vanilla caramel candy bar, and a little bit of peanuts and a little bit of cherries. Okay, so on the palate, immediately I'm noticing it's a little bit more viscous, but a little bit more dry-y, a little bit more of oak tannins in this one. It definitely kind of sapped my mouth out a little bit, but it did have a little bit more of that red fruit on the palate. So like those cherries that I was getting on the back end of the nose really showed through in the palate. It definitely has some cinnamon in it. Oak spice is definitely there. That candy bar nose that I got kind of faded away in the back end of this palate, but overwhelmingly there's still caramel as a baseline going down on the palate. Sweet, a lot more rich fruit on this one. The candy bar in the nose, fruity on the palate. I mean, what's not to love? This might be taking the lead so far, but we're going to go to Glass D before we take our break. Alright, Glass D on the nose. Alright, now compared to Glass A through C, Glass D has a lot less going on, it feels like. However, it does seem to be the fruitiest one yet. I want to say there's almost like a peach ring note that I'm getting in this one, along with vanilla, oak, very simple bourbon notes, I would say. I think I almost get a little bit of blackberry, kind of pushing me toward maybe an Elijah Craig barrel proof, but a little bit more fruity, a little less candy bar-ish. Overwhelmingly, a nice fruit medley, cooked down almost like a fruit compote. Still's got some heavy notes in it, but a lot of light fruitier notes in it on the nose. We're going to go ahead and get on the palate and let you guys know how Glass D is. Okay, so Glass D seems to be an entire fruit basket. It's got a lot going on, lots of cherries, blackberries, maybe even a little bit of raspberries, all mashed together in like a triple berry Julius. It's fruit compote. It's got some spice in it. I would say slight cinnamon and oak spice in it. It's very almost drying on the mouth. Seems like it's got a lot of proof in it. Not overwhelmingly viscous, but it does have a lot of those fruit flavors in the palate just as well as the nose. So overwhelmingly, like a different kind of sweetness, but still very sweet, which is following the overwhelming consensus of these four whiskeys. Now, these four whiskeys kind of have similar palates. Both Elijah Craig's and Booker's tend to have a nutty profile with a little bit of fruit and a lot of bit of oak. So these are good things to compare against each other, and certainly makes for an interesting blind. But we're going to take a small break before we go back D to A, and this is a perfect time for you guys to listen to a message from today's sponsor. Oh, hey guys. I know you guys are here to talk about the ad of today's video, and that ad spot belongs to Risk Mafia. Now, it's #1 time of the year for weddings, and I've been going to a lot of them. every outfit that I wear to these weddings, I need to complement with a stylish watch, and I get those watches from Wrist Mafia. Wrist Mafia is a monthly subscription company where, for just $40 a month, they'll send you a watch valued at $100 or more. Every single month, you'll get a new watch randomly from their choosing, and it allows you to diversify your watch collection and really step it up a notch. All these different kinds of watches that you get will allow you to choose and pick out a watch for every outfit that you have. Oh, and ladies, if you guys are looking for your men to step up their game as well, Wrist Mafia offers a 3 to 6 month subscription package where for the next 3 or 6 months, you'll have a prepaid watch sent to your house every single month. So your man will just be getting watches sent to his door every month, which is a good way for him to step up his game. Also, if you guys are interested in getting a watch from Wrist Mafia, you can use my coupon code BourbonBar, all caps, all one word, for 30% off at the checkout. So if you guys are interested, click the link in the description and join the Mafia today. Alright, we're back into it, and we're going to not waste any time. We're going to jump back in D to A before I reveal what my favorites are and what these glasses of whiskey are. So, starting with D. And on the nose, I remember D being a very fruity one in the beginning, so we're going to see how D has changed. Okay, so D is still very fruity on the nose. However, it does seem like there's a little bit more to it. It's got like this rich aspect to it. I want to say almost like a saltiness or like a little bit of a savoriness in there somehow. It could even be like butter, like just like buttered, salted butter maybe, or like a salted caramel in there. But overwhelmingly, the nose has a little bit of something savory in it, which is different than the first time I tasted it. And on the palate, D is just really nice. It's a good, easy sipper. It's got some tannins. It's got some heat to it. But that salted caramel that was in the nose actually comes through, and I'm getting that saltiness on the palate as well. The fruit is still there. I'd say it's dwindled down to being more of a cherry blackberry, but not a whole 3-berry medley. But it is still very fruity. So like a salted caramel fruit, and then oak is there, but it is pretty muted in this one, so a lot less oaky compared to the rest. On to Glass C. We're going to go ahead and get Glass C on the nose. Oh my god, Glass C is just liquid heaven, I would say. I mean, it's like all the perfect parts of a candy bar, exactly what you would want. That vanilla plays really nicely with the caramel, and it almost makes like this nougat, along with a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of peanut, but overwhelmingly just like a Milky Way candy bar. But it's looking like one of my favorites for sure. This one does tend to have a little bit better of a mouthfeel. It's a little thicker than the rest, and it definitely has some character to it. However, very oaky on the palate and the mid palate and the finish. A lot of oak presence in this glass. That sweetness is still there. That vanilla comes through a lot, but I think like the chocolatey aspect dies down a little bit and the caramely aspect dies down a little bit, but we get a lot more of vanilla, oaky, and maybe even like a cinnamon spice or an oak spice on the palate, on the finish. It leaves a nice warm hug all the way down, but overwhelmingly really good. The nose is close to the palate, but not overwhelmingly exact on the palate. And it makes for a pretty interesting drink. So Glass C is looking like a lead contender for this round. On to Glass B, we'll get it on the nose. Okay, so Glass B is just more of the same. Overwhelmingly chocolatey, but not like super sweet. It's like chocolate, but it doesn't smell like pure sugar. It's not fruity. It doesn't have a lot of caramel in it. It's just like a lot of chocolate with a little bit of caramel. There might even be a little bit of peanut dust in there, but everything is like dry ingredients only. I want to say maybe like a payday bar, if a payday bar was covered in chocolate. Otherwise, it's almost like a dark chocolate, one of those Dove dark chocolate candies, or one of those Dove dark chocolates. Very rich chocolate, and a lot of like rich chocolate, which is like one of the only things going on in this glass. I love chocolate, so I think it's phenomenal, but it's hard to say if it has enough to offer on the nose to really be anything super special. Now we'll get on the palate. Okay, so the palate of this one, it's just like, it's very nice. It's a little bit thinner, but it tastes just like chocolate. It's super, super home base. It's very familiar. It's very sweet and easy to drink. It's not unfolding like an onion before my eyes, but it is just a classic, rich chocolate caramel oak. Very, I don't want to say dry. It's not drying out my mouth, but like in terms of like dry ingredients, like it's very like not overwhelmingly juicy and sweet. It's just chocolate is all I can really say. So this one is great if you like chocolate, but now we're gonna go ahead and move on to glass A, and we'll get glass A on the nose. Okay, so one thing I didn't get in glass A to begin with, which I'm getting now, is this honey note. It's overwhelming, this honey note that's in there. It's like a honeyed caramel oak bomb. It's got some peanuts in there, so there's a lot of peanuts in it, but it's like a peanuts and honey, honey roasted peanuts. It's honestly, it smells fantastic. A really great note for this whiskey, and it kind of brings it and rounds it all out. Now we're going to get it on the palate. So on the palate, this one I'm noticing is the richest and most viscous out of the entire lineup. Now, it's got those peanuts in there, and that honey comes through on the palate as well, but overwhelmingly, a lot of caramel on the palate. First thing you notice is that sweet caramelness, and it's definitely got some oak influence in there as well. It's warm, Kentucky hug all the way down, rich, viscous, full-bodied. Actually, glass A seems to be a really, really nice whiskey. That being said, I do have my order. So my order is C in first place, D in second place, B in third place, and A in last place. And starting in last place, glass A is going to be Booker's batch 2022-02, the Lumberyard batch. This one, I definitely think I could tell it was a Booker's. It was very rich and very viscous. It did have this honey note in there that threw me off a little bit. And not that I dislike the honey notes, it's just that compared to the other ones, there were notes in those ones that I preferred over the notes in this one, but this one is still a lot of good whiskey, and it definitely had a lot to offer, so overwhelmingly, very good. Glass B on this list came in third place, and that is Elijah Craig Batch B522. I gotta say, this isn't too much of a surprise to me. The B522 is a good bottle, but it wasn't my favorite. I remember C921 being my favorite Elijah Craig bottle, and I do remember No Strangers Batch being my favorite Booker's bottle, so yeah, I would say that's basically how I feel about those. So batch B522 is in third place. That leaves glass C and glass D in places 1 and 2, and that means I have 1 Booker's and 1 Elijah Craig Barrel Proof left. Now this will determine whether I find Booker's or ECBP's better, all coming down to these last 2 glasses. And glass D, second place on the list, is Booker's batch 2021-04 No Strangers batch, which makes Elijah Craig Barrel Proof batch C921 my #1 whiskey in this flight. This is and isn't a super surprise for me. I love both Booker's No Strangers batch and Elijah Craig batch C921. These are 2 of my favorite whiskeys on the shelf. I really expected them both to do very good in this blind, which they did. It was honestly a coin toss between C and D. I think that C definitely had the most to offer. It was very candy bar-ish, just overwhelmingly all the notes that I enjoy. It was just good whiskey overall. The No Strangers batch had a lot more fruit in it than I remember. It definitely had a little bit of that oak and peanut butterness and a little bit of chocolate, but lots of fruit, which I never usually picked up on. So that being said, Elijah Craig C921 is a victor, and that would make Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs better than Booker's. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, please hit the like button and leave a comment in the comment section which one of these bottles is your favorite. That being said, this is the end of the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you in the next class.